I'm Glenda Hope. I'm a Presbyterian minister, retired now, as to the extent that ministers ever really retire. I want to start out by saying a little about my upbringing. I'm a native of Atlanta, Georgia. I still think of myself as a native of Atlanta, although I've been here since '67, so 53 years. I grew up in a society and a culture and in a family that was just unexamined racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, whatever. It was just there. And it's not always a big thing, but just, it was assumed this is the way it is. I don't know how I've been able to change, and I certainly acknowledge that I still have some of that because it was so deeply, maybe said another way, I was just immersed in it from birth.
We gather here this morning in one of the darkest hours in the history of the black people of this nation.
So we went, but we didn't have time to go to the church. We were standing on the march, and all of a sudden, here was the march coming. It was one of Dr. King's favorite biblical passages was, "Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream." And that funeral march from Ebenezer Baptist Church over to the place where there were some black colleges, that Spelman, and that funeral march was like that river flowing through Atlanta, by my hometown. March for justice and righteousness flowed by the state capitol. Lester Maddox was inside, surrounded by game wardens. Think of the symbolism. Surrounded by game wardens. Yeah. So Dee Dee, my friend Dee Dee, and I stepped into the march. We marched quite a long way over to this college campus. And I was never so aware of my own latent violence as I was then. I felt like if this can happen to a person like Dr. King, what the use? What's the use? I might as well take up a gun and go to the barricades. And it was an awful, poisonous feeling, but there it was. And then being in that group of people who were that group was probably at least 90% black people. It changed me. And where I was standing, there was a little rise ahead of me, and there were two men standing on it. So I could hear, but I couldn't see. And one of them looked around. They were both black men. And one of them looked around and said, "Oh, you can't see. Come up here." And pulled me up, and the three of us then on this little rise with our arms around each other and singing, "We Shall Overcome," and Mahalia Jackson singing Dr. King's favorite hymn. It was a Damascus Road experience, a conversion experience again.